Welcome back to the Pregnant Christian Environmentalist podcast. We are talking about nutrition today, to be specific, during pregnancy mostly, but also touching on breastfeeding and baby's first solids. I have been wanting to do this my whole pregnancy, but I'm so glad I waited till the end because there's some bonus information I've learned through different resources throughout my pregnancy. But basically, just to get right into it, I really believe that this podcast episode is for everybody because I really just think you should eat healthy in general and keep eating healthy in general during pregnancy. There's not a huge difference, but we're going to get deeper into why we kind of do need to supplement certain vitamins and nutrients, especially in pregnancy, and avoid certain items. But what I really wanted to do was grab a bottle of prenatals, see what vitamins are in there, and I'm talking a good bottle of prenatals, the one that's well studied and a popular one. What are we talking about that pregnant women need? What nutrients and vitamins? I'm going to go through each one of these vitamins and talk about why we need them, why women tend to be deficient in them, and how to eat them in your diet. Later on, touching on the subject of breastfeeding and baby's first solids, we're going to have Kate Pope as a guest. She is a certified GAPS practitioner, holistic chef, and functional nutritional therapy practitioner. She has an Instagram called The Wild Nutritionist. It has a big following. People love her stuff, and you can tell it's because they're just seeing results, and she's basically changing lives, casual. She's a world changer, so she's going to be on soon, but it'll just be me for the mostly pregnancy part of this episode. I have done so much research, so many podcasts, so many beliefs, so much Googling, and basically making fun of those results just because I like to, not just Google, what should a pregnant woman have? But no, what are the actual stats? What are the actual studies done and what are the results? Because I think there are a lot of lies and misconceptions and biases and food companies and the government pushing certain foods because it makes them money, when really there are other foods that don't make the money that we can be getting these nutrients from, and they will be more bioavailable to our bodies. Rambling, okay, but disclosure. I'm going to say some stuff that I can imagine could be really scary to a newly pregnant woman or someone that is trying to get pregnant. That is not the point. I always say life is too short to worry about food. Because we shouldn't worry. We shouldn't stress. I mean, stress is one of the worst things for your baby, right? And one of the worst things for getting pregnant, for fertility. So I don't want to cause stress. I just want to talk about this because doctors don't at all. And many women have traumatic births, not so pleasant pregnancies, and their babies have things like autism, ADHD, because we're not talking about food basically at all in the hospital system. But just to say, don't be scared if you're not eating perfect. I definitely don't eat perfect. Nobody does. There are plenty of women that have babies and don't even really pay much attention to their nutrition and things end up fine. But if you're like me and you're psycho excited, want to be perfectionist mom for your baby and it doesn't cause added stress to take care of your nutrition and really prioritize that, then listen to this episode. The thing is, nutrition shouldn't be this complicated, and you might be thinking this is really complicated after this episode. The reason, though, it is because if you live in a place, aka the US, or most Western culture, or especially a city in any country, and you're eating food that has been processed, hold on for that definition, then you are eating food that is very lacking in nutrients, and we are just super nutrient deficient and having all these issues. Okay, so when you hear processed, I'd imagine a lot of you would think, oh, it comes in a bag and has all those crazy ingredients on the ingredients list, or wrapped in plastic. Yes, that's all true. Those are processed foods, but we actually have to go into single ingredients as well. For example, milk. If it's been pasteurized, it's been heated up, processed, it's pretty nutrientless. Gluten, if you're in the US, all the gluten is processed. It does not have the 44 beautiful nutrients that it should naturally have if you just milled grain from wheat from the ground. We process it, nutrientless. So any food that has been altered, been in a lab, gone through some sort of process from its natural state, some of it's fine. It's called cooking. We make oil, we make certain things, but it's about the process it goes through. And so that's especially what I pay attention to when I'm eating, is to avoid processed foods. Even your fruit can be nutrientless because it is often picked way too early. Most vitamins and nutrients enter the fruit at the very end before it ripens on the plant. It's picked too early so that it can be shipped overseas. That's why we should buy local fruit. So that is how I explain my way of eating. Yes, I call it ancestral eating, which basically means what did our ancestors eat versus what we're eating today. But really it just means not eating processed foods. Another example is chocolate, something we very often crave in certain parts of our menstrual cycle. If you're a dude listening to this, sorry I'm saying we, but just listen up. Us women, we crave chocolate often, and that can be a sign of mineral deficiency because cacao is rich in minerals. Dark chocolate is super good for you, cacao, but if you reach for a processed chocolate bar, that has zero of the nutrients that your body is probably asking for. So that's just a great example there. Let's make these habits and you won't have to worry during your pregnancy. And I really, truly believe, though it might get me canceled, that proper nutrition will get rid of a lot of common pregnancy, uncomfortable symptoms and nausea and things like that. I also very much so believe that it will improve your fertility. So I did an episode on fertility. Go check that out if that's the stage you're in. But whether you're struggling to get pregnant or not, you should be eating these vitamins and nutrients in prenatals that have been found to be necessary for growing fetus and having a comfortable pregnancy. You should be eating those way before you conceive because your body should be balanced. Now, I've heard many times, and you might be thinking it, oh, but I know so-and-so who had such and such, and she's so healthy. Maybe she doesn't have the right conception of health. Or maybe you're right. Maybe she does have incredible nutrition and there's something genetic, maybe passed down, or just something environmental where she lives. There's so many factors, okay? But let's decrease our risk and just thrive and have the best pregnancy and healthiest baby as possible. Ooh, another disclosure. I'm about to blow your mind what I'm gonna say. Unless you're very aware of ancestral eating, you're gonna be like, excuse me, did you just say not to eat a ton of leafy greens? So yeah, just you wait. You're gonna be probably shocked by what I'm gonna say, especially as an environmentalist. You would maybe think I'm a vegan or a vegetarian. That is very much not true. I believe we have been lied to with the benefits of veganism, and I really think that it was this narrative created by people that want to sell more cheap greens and veggies. I believe being an animal product eater is very sustainable. It's what we've been doing for all of time. A cow can feed a family for a year. Agriculture today is one of the most polluting industries that exists. So, yes, I believe our animals should be treated right if we are going to be buying from big corporations. No, I don't believe cow farts are as big of a deal as we say they are. Documentaries can seriously convince you of anything. Something that's really important to remember in pregnancy is what we eat is multiplied sometimes up to times 10 in the fetus, in your baby. The positive note on that, though, is our bodies, our motherly instincts give baby what he or she needs. Baby takes it first. So when you're feeling a deficiency, when something feels off, it might not be affecting baby yet. It's your body telling you you're deficient in it. Your baby is taking all of that nutrient from you, but we might as well have enough for the both of us to be thriving during pregnancy and postpartum. I think it's an absolute disservice for doctors to not talk about the fact that how you eat might actually cause gestational diabetes, might actually cause nausea and other symptoms I've talked about it in past episodes. All I personally heard from doctors, one said the only thing to avoid is high mercury fish. And that is, again, because what we have is times 10 in the baby. So mercury isn't that good for you. Baby's going to get a load of it. Then he said, you're going to want ice cream. Just don't eat too much. That's all he said. Another doctor I talked to before I switched to my current midwife said, try to avoid some foodborne illnesses. That's about it. We asked them, how should I be eating? What should I be doing? They just didn't say anything. And I really think that women are being absolutely cheated because they might not have the resources that I've been so privileged to have to learn more about this whole nutrition thing. So before we get into that list of necessities during pregnancy, let's talk about the trimesters. So first trimester, all my food beliefs in that first trimester, it didn't make sense. I did not want meat, and meat, I believe, is so good for you. We'll get into that, but I didn't want it at all. And there was a lot of things I didn't want that was kind of freaking me out. I really believe our cravings tell us something, they're for a reason. And I've even heard doctors say that's not true, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But turns out there is a reason we don't want certain things in our first trimester. That first trimester, our bodies are knitting together the fetus. Our little baby has all of its fingers, organs, heart, ventricles, everything by the end of the first trimester. And for whatever reason, that's extremely exhausting for our body. Kind of funny to me because it's like the tiniest little baby that we create, but apparently it is just taking all of our energy in that first trimester. That's why we get so exhausted. And that's why your body does not want to be digesting meat in that first trimester. It doesn't need the protein quite yet. That's actually for second and third trimester when protein is so important, because from then on out, your baby is just growing bigger and you need all the protein. But that first trimester, you just need some energy. And I've heard this is so crazy, but my first trimester craving was, now it's been described to me as Mediterranean salads. I basically was just asking for like cold cucumbers and bell peppers. I just wanted cold, not super sweet produce. I did not want sugary foods. It was tripping me out, and it makes sense knowing now what my body was going through and what it was knitting together in the womb. Something about that first trimester, not to scare you, but why it's important to be healthy before we start trying for kids, is that because everything is formed so quickly, that is when baby is most susceptible to damage from drugs, chemicals, viral infections, x-rays, EMFs, and just poor nutrition in general. So you might as well just work on those things starting yesterday. What's really crazy is a big nutrient that a lot of doctors will tell you, make sure you're taking your prenatals that have folate in it. What's mostly talked about with folate is supplementing it so your baby does not have a neural tube defect. But the crazy thing is, the baby's neural tube is formed by week number 6, which is about when we even find out in the first place we're pregnant. So it's kind of too late at that point to try to avoid that. So try to have folate in your life in general. There are more reasons to be on it with folate in pregnancy. We'll get into that. So as you can see, it's no wonder why most miscarriages happen during the first trimester. It could have been for reasons that happened before you were even pregnant. Let's talk about some food don'ts during pregnancy. Again, before we get into the do's. Food poisoning. It's what most people talk about during pregnancy. Don't have sushi, deli meats, soft cheeses. Okay, here's my little pregnancy theme that has just been eminent in most of my decision making, and I talk about this a lot, is I am here on this earth to thrive and not just survive. So, in the context of foodborne illnesses, if you lock yourself up in a big cushiony box and only eat like super processed, cooked, burnt food, then yeah, you're not going to get a foodborne illness, but you're missing out on thriving, feeling good, fresh ingredients. So when I hear, oh, somebody got a foodborne illness from raw milk, somebody got a foodborne illness from soft cheese, I want to know the stats, what's actually the risk, and is it actually worth cutting out a super nutritious food? So it turns out close to 50% of foodborne illnesses come from produce, actually, mostly leaves. So if you're really worried about them, then honestly, I wouldn't even order salads out much at restaurants unless it's like, I don't know, even nice restaurants you don't really know. Save salads maybe for home. I also often don't eat those foods at restaurants because they're doused in pesticides unless they say otherwise that they only serve organic produce. I try to not even eat raspberries and strawberries out that aren't organic because they're literally just covered in chemicals. So I actually had food poisoning and I bawled my eyes out in the first trimester. I had no idea if my baby was okay because all I had ever heard is food poisoning is the worst thing that could happen. That's all you have to worry about in eating. Well, it turns out it's just certain kinds of food poisoning that are dangerous to your baby. Many others, your body's just probably throwing up something that it didn't like, and it was probably food poisoning. I definitely got it from a potluck, and my body just detoxed that bacteria or whatever it was that we didn't want baby to be exposed to. It was kind of a beautiful thing that we have that detoxing process. Our body knows what to do. The most common dangerous foodborne illness is listeria, and that is dangerous to baby. So listeria, 90% of cases are caused by deli meats, and that is buying from a grocery store or buying from a sandwich shop. I would actually avoid that. But even at a grocery store, that deli meat, if it's been in the fridge straight to your mouth, it can hold listeria. It does survive in the fridge, and that is 90% of cases in the US. If you eat a soft cheese, there is a 1 in 53 million chance when you bite into it that you will get listeria. When it comes to milk, there have been recent studies done that you are more likely to get a foodborne illness from pasteurized milk than from raw milk. Yes, I've been drinking raw milk throughout my pregnancy. That would freak most people out, but the chances, the stats are so low. It's also great if you're really worried about foodborne illnesses to check recalls pretty often. There are websites, I will link one. And when it comes to raw fish, I have been enjoying that very much during my pregnancy, but I only get it fresh. I will not buy cheap raw fish. Again, it's a stats thing. I know it's so nourishing for my baby. We are thriving here, not just surviving and avoiding any food with the slightest chance of a risk. But I will say I have not been having much because most raw fish in my area is a high mercury fish, and that I am avoiding. And just the gist of that, if your budget and location doesn't include having fresh raw fish and really high quality deli meats, yeah, I would maybe just cut them out. Just look up the stats and really see what is your risk and make those decisions on your own. And don't let anybody guilt trip you about how you're mothering. Something else to be avoiding during pregnancy is seed oils for many, many reasons, but one being that they affect your prostaglandins, which is actually the hormone that causes pain in labor. There's a reason we have it, but you really don't want something that's directly affecting that. They also cause deficiency in omega-3s, and we'll get into that, but that is a very important part of pregnancy. So seed oils are a no-no. I have cheated on multiple occasions, and I've had them. If you don't know, they're in like everything that's processed. So if you have a seed oil, try to supplement with some vitamin E, maybe take a charcoal pill. Just know that the less, the better. Something I didn't know is apparently horseradish has been used in history to cause miscarriage. Lots of horseradish can lead to miscarriage. So I just didn't know that, and I was kind of bummed that I had never heard that before because I eat a lot of wasabi, and I don't know how much you need to cause that, but it's something that now, if you did research, resources will say have a very, very limited amount. So that's my last food don't. And before I get into the nutrients, some food bonuses that you can look into yourself. I'm not going to go into them because you're probably going to hear about them anyways. They're so popular for pregnancy, is especially third trimester. Dates, raspberry leaf tea, nettle tea, or here in Hawaii, we drink mamaki tea, does a similar thing. Primrose oil, and I'm just going to say it before I say it a million more times, eggs. eat eggs. Those are the food bonuses. Look those up. I just want this to be an all-comprehensive nutrition podcast for pregnancy, so had to throw those in there. They have some really unique properties that might help you during labor and during your third trimester. I forgot to mention, first trimester, liver. That's the first time I just used that word. Should we count how many more times I'm about to say it? Liver, for many, many women, has absolutely stopped nausea during pregnancy, even first trimester. Okay, so if you look it up, studies show we still don't know the cause of morning sickness, and many doctors, because of that, will say, oh, it's just random. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. I very much disagree with that. I think that there's a reason, and yes, anyone that's so healthy could get it, and it might be something random that caused it, but liver has healed so many women of pregnancy nausea. So that's the first time I said it. On to that list of nutrients. You're about to hear me say it a lot more. So I checked the back of the bottle of prenatals that I started taking. I started taking Ritual because a lot of really great nutritionists I follow recommend them, and I will link them. Even though I did end up switching to Heart and Soil liver pills as my prenatal, they cover those vital nutrients we need in pregnancy as well. To me, it's a more natural source to get them. When it comes to any pill, I'm always super sus about where it came from, and even if you can read about it on their website, how bioavailable is that obviously super processed version of that nutrient in the pill. If it's a little powder, it's gone through some sort of altering. And yes, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I would rather save money, save time, and eat my supplements. I do definitely recommend having a prenatal though, just in case, you never know. There might be something you're missing. And again, just this day and age, our foods are so processed, so altered, it's hard to trust exactly the sourcing. So I think it's a good cushion. But if you eat super ancestral, animal-based, super unprocessed, I don't think you need a prenatal. Actually, I know that. Also, with some other changed factors in your diet, like what water you drink. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. If everything is on fleek, you don't need a prenatal, but let's be honest, that's not usually the case living where we live. So nutrient number one, and the one you will hear most about, even the doctor will say it, is folate. And what is hilarious is the doctor will tell you to take folic acid, which is the synthetic version of folate. And way more studies are coming out that folic acid literally does not get through to the placenta. It's not transferred, so it's actually a waste of time. And yet still, a lot of sources are so behind that they will still tell you to take folic acid as your folate source because they just haven't seen these studies yet, or people just take a long time to adopt new information. It's unreal. Okay, so folates. Now for each of these nutrients, I'm going to say why we need them, what foods have them, and give a spicy little comparison to what the world will tell you to eat versus what I'm going to tell you to eat to get that nutrient. Okay, spoiler alert, it's going to be a lot of animal products. So folate is very important. We talked about neural tube defect, but that is done at 6 weeks. So afterwards, it's important to keep having because it is very important for cells, which affects birth weight. Deficiency can be linked to miscarriage, birth defects, and neurodevelopment problems. So what's a great source of folate? Oh, liver. Oh, and eggs. So many resources will say, well, kale has folate. Kale's so healthy for you. There is 12 times the amount of folate in a small little serving of liver than in kale. And one big cup of kale has the same amount of folate as an egg. Oh, what about almonds? Well, you would need to have 230 almonds to equal the amount of folate than in that small serving of liver. Next, vitamin D. Again, this was the list of nutrients that are on the back of your prenatal bottle that we should just be receiving from our daily diet. But unfortunately, most Americans are not. Vitamin D. So vitamin D is important for lung development and skeletal growth. Where do we find vitamin D? Oh, liver, fatty fish, grass-fed butter or lard, eggs, and the sun. Most of the voices in our lives say to hide from the sun, the main source of vitamin D. I believe the sun is so healthy for you, and the reason skin cancer exists is because of our diet. We, for all of ages, have handled sun just fine, and all of a sudden, our skin is not handling it well. Well, I know people whose skin handles it so well because they have the cleanest diets I know, avoiding seed oils and processed foods. Rant over vitamin D is great to receive from the sun and those other animal-based products, not fortified foods, because the US is so deficient in vitamin D because of the processing of our food. Many foods like cereal and bread on the shelf are fortified with vitamin D because if you look back in history, before we started fortifying some of these absolutely nutrient dead foods, people were dying up the wazoo. They were not getting enough vitamin D and government had to intervene. And that's why we have fortified foods. That vitamin D is just being linked to an empty calorie food. It's hardly bioavailable for our bodies. It helps the country's problem a little bit with deaths and disease, but why get it from foods that are causing more damage to our bodies when you can get it from butter? I mean, yes, please. Can I say that throughout this episode, you're also going to be shocked at how absolutely delicious your daily diet can be with these super nutritious, non-processed foods. In fact, more delicious for sure than the processed foods diet. Sure, you're not getting your Oreos and breakfast cereals that you might miss for a second, but once you're starting to cook for yourself and nourish yourself and bake milled grain brownies instead of Oreos or raw milk ice cream, like you're not gonna miss the really crappy processed stuff. I'm an advocate for butter and steak and chocolate chip cookies, ice cream, loads of fruit, as much raw honey as your body craves. We'll get into that. That's in the long run, and it takes a lot of food prep, and it takes making those things from scratch. But just know that I am not about to tell you to have the most boring, bland, veggie-based diet. Vitamin E. So according to studies, if baby doesn't get much vitamin E, there will be reproductive issues. There actually have been a lot of studies about this. Well, if you ask many sources, they'll say, yeah, your seed oils and your nuts have vitamin E, like they're great. Well, seed oils and nuts, they have polyunsaturated fats, and those actually at the same time simultaneously deplete your vitamin E. So polyunsaturated fats. So what does have a lot of vitamin E? Grass-fed butter, fresh fruits, Mediterranean salad kind of foods, you know, your bell peppers, your tomatoes, your cucumber, avocados, and a bonus ingredient that I'm going to get into, so stay tuned. Vitamin B12, that is just highly known as a concern for vegan and vegetarians because it's only in meat, it's only in animal products. So often vegans and vegetarians are supplementing their vitamin B12. This is important for blood cells, and great sources of vitamin B12 is liver, raw milk, and raw cheese. Biotin was next on the list, and that is another form of vitamin B. Without biotin, it has been found for babies to have an increased chance of limb and palate defects. There's not a ton of studies done on this, but that is just one thing that was found. The top sources for biotin are liver and eggs. Choline. Choline is important for brain development, memory, and focus. Fun fact, choline prevents stress from the mom from being transferred to the baby. So that's why I'm going to really recommend this choline supplement, or maybe have some mushroom. No, you can get an impressive amount of choline from eggs, liver, and raw dairy. Minerals. Minerals were on the list. I'm going to switch it up a little, stop talking about animal products, even though they are very rich in minerals. So there you go, I said it. But what water are you drinking? I am going to link my water YouTube video. I go off about water, but that is maybe possibly another thing your doctor will tell you, if they're cool, that you need to be paying attention to is having electrolytes. A lot of sources talk about electrolytes for pregnant women. I'm sure you've heard that if you're pregnant. And unfortunately, a lot of women then go to silly, sugary packets of electrolytes to add to their water. The reason that we are deficient in electrolytes and minerals is because we are drinking dead water very often. If you're drinking purified water, it is depleted of its minerals and its natural electrolytes. So either get an AquaTrue water filter is my just quick answer. I'll link that as well, a big discount on it. Or add trace minerals to your purified water. I'll link those as well. Or just any mineral drops. But I definitely love that I have my AquaTrue filter because I don't have to literally add drops every time I drink water. It's just already added in there. And what's crazy is twice now in my pregnancy, when I couldn't have my AquaTrue filter because I was traveling, I experienced leg cramps, and both times it was about 5 days of not having my water, my living water before that happened. So my body immediately responded. My body is used to having living water that has natural electrolytes. But yes, minerals are actually in so many nutritious foods as well. And unfortunately, if we're just eating a lot of processed, cooked, pasteurized kind of foods, then we are not getting those minerals and we have deficiency. Next is DHA omega-3. That is so important to the fetus that it actually hoards it and often causes postpartum depression when your baby took all your DHA and you are depleted of it. Many of us, when we hear omega-3, we go to supplementing it when really you could just have liver and fatty fish. Plant-based omega-3, you might be thinking flaxseed is a common one that lots of people supplement. That is actually not DHA omega-3, it's ALA omega-3, and that does not convert efficiently to DHA in your body, which is what your baby needs. Vitamin K, that is good for blood clotting. And if you look it up, many resources will say have your leafy greens. And I've even heard pregnancy podcasts talk about kale for your vitamin K. Well, actually, that kind of vitamin K is K1, and it actually does not get transferred to the placenta. K2 gets transferred. And what foods have vitamin K2 and exponentially more than leafy greens? Liver, grass-fed butter, raw cheese, and eggs. Oh, and a bonus one, there's a lot in fermented foods as well. So I have been getting a lot of this information and reading the Nourishing Tradition books of baby and childcare by Sally Fallon Morrell, and she lists a few more nutrients, but I have to shout that book out because she cuts through the BS and goes into the nitty-gritty stats and studies for what pregnant women should be eating and what we all should be eating in general. Not my only source for information, but it's a big one. So she also mentioned a few more nutrients that prenatals don't have. One is vitamin A, and it's shocking that that's not in every prenatal because it is crucial in organ development. A lack of vitamin A has been linked to autism, and you can find it in organs, liver, animal fats. Liver has 45 times more vitamin A than kale. It has 10 times more than carrots. But carrots do have it, so. Another interesting thing she said is vital is sulfur in our diets. Sulfur is necessary for cholesterol absorption in the baby, and that also prevents autism. Sulfur you can get through liver and eggs. And glycine, also not in most prenatals, but it is actually necessary for protein absorption. So we know how important protein is in that second and third trimester. We need to be able to absorb it. So glycine, this is a little interesting. It can actually be depleted by meat and eggs if you are not pairing it with liver. Glycine is also in legumes. Many sources will tell you to go there, but there is 5 times more glycine in liver than legumes. So do we see now why it's a great idea to have at least liver pills while you're pregnant, or just daily in general? They are one of the few supplements I'll suggest, but honestly, if you can just switch to pate and eating liver from other sources. I've bought organ blend ground beef before where they just blend in that liver with it. That is more efficient, affordable, and bioavailable to your body. But My heart and soil liver supplements are kind of a bit easier, and I plan to become a pate master in the future, but for now, that's just ease of mind. How beautiful is it that it covers so many of these things and you don't have to be panicking at this point how many risks there are in vitamin deficiencies living in the very processed world we live in today. So you might be thinking, so you're telling me to eat liver and eggs only during pregnancy? Of course not. And you also might be thinking, well, what about some other nutrients that seem beneficial? What about vitamin C? What about calcium? Okay, also found in animal products. So let me just mention though, filling in the gaps, I eat a lot of fresh fruit. And fresh fruit is incredible for vitamin C. It has the natural sugars our body needs. And if anyone ever tells you to eat less fruit to reduce sugar in your body, write them off. Also, raw honey, it's sugar. And if you're craving sugar, make some raw milk ice cream with raw honey. Make a smoothie with raw honey. It's so good for you. The antioxidants are incredible. And if you're craving sugar and go to fruit and raw honey instead of processed sugars, your body will thank you. Also remember that fruit is anything with a seed. So avocados, bell peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, I mean, what even is the definition of a vegetable? I'm just saying, those are fruits. Huge advocate for fruit. They're a great filler. They're filled with nutrients. Try to get fresh and local because that is the most nutrient filled, most sustainable, and you can trust the farmers more about what pesticides they use. They also are very important for fiber. Fruit is loaded with fiber. A lot of us think, oh, I need to eat dirt and dark cruciferous vegetables for fiber. No, fiber is just fiber. It's fibrous, and fruit is great for that. I also eat a lot of bread, okay? The only bread in the US that is already made is processed. The gluten is indigestible. That's why people feel amazing when they cut it out. That's why we're getting so many people that are gluten intolerant. I mill my own grain, and milled grain bread has 44 nutrients in it, beautiful nutrients that are just completely depleted by the US bread industry, aka gluten, flour, cookies, everything in between. So that's why I said, make cookies, make muffins, make dessert, pancakes, waffles. I mean, my diet is so good because I use milled flour and it is so good for you. Some of the nutrients include folate, which I believe we are deficient in folate in our country because of this whole gluten issue. It has vitamin E, has fiber, vitamin B, protein, and minerals, and way more. And I have a lot of raw dairy. Raw milk has minerals, bioavailable calcium, vitamin A, E, C, B, digestive enzymes, iron, folate, protein, probiotics, and omega-3s, all in raw milk. It's so good for you. Especially love knowing that I'm getting that probiotic in me. I eat a lot of yogurt, raw cheese. That yogurt has that probiotic. These foods are so good for you. They're unaltered, and they're all so dang good. I mean, can we talk about how much butter I eat? And I actually lost weight when I switched to eating this way 5 years ago. So that is the entire list, and it still blows my mind that we are just pointing people to legumes, seeds, and nuts, the foods that are really hard to digest and used to hurt my stomach for years before I cut them out, actually. My last tip for nutrition in pregnancy is to eat a lot and just little bits throughout the day because, at least for me, I get pain in my stomach if I eat a lot because my stomach is pretty squished right now. I am 35 weeks pregnant right now, by the way. And for postpartum, I've just been receiving the info from some amazing mom friends telling me to start cooking my postpartum meals now and freeze them. You need a lot of food to produce breast milk. And a lot of women want to start dieting right after baby so they can bounce back, cut off the baby fat. That's actually when you need to be eating just as much to produce enough breast milk. Eating a lot after also reduces postpartum depression and will lead to a quicker recovery. So if you're pregnant and you're getting close to your third trimester, start double batching your dinners, freezing half of it so you'll have plenty of postpartum meals. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback on this. Come at me. This is such a controversial topic, and I want to hear what you think about all the stats and deep research I've been finding and just being mind blown about. Let's call Kate Pope, and she's going to tell us a bit about post-birth, something that I haven't studied as much about, and I can't wait to ask her all my questions. Let's call her up. Hi, Kate. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So this is Kate Pope, the wild nutritionist on Instagram, but in a moment I want to hear more about what you're doing with your knowledge, your career, and how we can get connected with you on your website. So yes, I really appreciate having someone so knowledgeable in this subject where I was just talking about nutrition and pregnancy and what I've learned. But with babies first solids and raising kids, it's just such an overwhelming subject, and we have too much information and it's controversial online, and so we kind of just lean to, I think, what our friends and community say, but they're not as studied up. So it's just great to have you, and from what I've seen, I just really agree with what you talk a lot about and have personally felt healing through eating kind of the way it seems you eat, but we're going to get into that. So
Great. I'm excited to be here.
yeah. So let's start with you introducing yourself and your family, and also what got you into this, and how can we support and participate in what you're putting out there.
Great. Well, hey everyone, I'm Kate Pope. I am Wild Nutritionist on Instagram, which I had that name come to me when I was working as a private chef in the kitchen, and I was trying to get away from that job and start working more on my own business and really doing my dream, which was helping mothers heal. And this was before I had any children, and I was just chopping away in the kitchen, and I thought, Wild Nutritionist, is that taken? And it wasn't. And so I hopped on, grabbed that handle, and you can learn a lot on that Instagram page. I'm very devoted to that page and I love it there, and it's a great place to hang out with me. So I got started in nutrition with my own healing journey. I was really fatigued after graduating from a rigorous degree in dance, and I was just super interested in how foods could heal. And so I started changing my diet, eating more meats, eating more local food. I met my husband actually in the School of Theater and Dance, and he had both of us grew up in like very food forward families. And so we were both like passionate about food, early foodies, and he started to on his own heal himself through the metabolic state of ketosis. And we came back together. We actually split up in college, and then we came back together 3 years later and got married. And before we got married, we prepared our bodies for pregnancy, which I learned through the founder of the GAPS nutritional protocol. She said this thing like, people shouldn't just have babies willy nilly anymore. We really have to prepare. And that really stuck out in my mind. So I had this like luxury of like really nutrient loading before I had babies, as well as clearing toxins for both my husband and I. And then my first birth ended up in a cesarean. And that really was the like breaking point for how I was speaking about nutrition for children, because I was just sent home from the hospital and I was like, wow, they didn't tell me anything about repairing my microbiome or like helping my body detox. And like, this is a big deal. So I started talking about that from that angle, and that really like lit a bunch of people up online because they had had similar experiences and wanted to help their babies heal. And so I think the main thing that I do on my page is empower mothers to heal their babies themselves, really live the principles of ancestral foods, ancestral cooking, and knowing that we can heal anything.
That's amazing. And so check out your Instagram. Are you working on anything else on the side?
Yeah, so I have courses that you can join, and the course that is the most popular is my first foods course. So I teach you how to start solids the gut health way. And this is really fun, intuitive, and honestly a big learning as well to help babies recover from digestive issues, eczema, colic, food reactions, all of those symptoms that really come from a dysbiosis in the gut. I help mothers solve and reverse. So I have that course, and I also have Mama Baby Biome, which is about to be re-released, and that is the course for mothers to heal their guts alongside their children and for older children as well.
Okay, awesome. That did stick out to me in what you're just saying. So, healing the microbiome, you're talking about for mom, but also if you had a cesarean, are you talking about maybe introducing foods that will help baby with maybe what it missed out on from a vaginal birth.
That's one way of putting it. So it's really because of where we are, multiple generations of nutritional deficiencies, multiple generations of carrying toxic loads in a really toxic world. Just because you have a vaginal birth doesn't automatically guarantee that you're going to not have gut dysbiosis. Like some people will DM me and say, like, I don't understand. Like I had a natural birth, I had no antibiotics, like I breastfed and my baby's still having all these symptoms. And I always relate that to the ecology that we are currently swimming in, right? So it's not just when you have a cesarean, but when you do have a cesarean, there is definite implications that need specific tailoring so that you and baby can both heal in a really specific way that's specific to a surgery, right? So, things, yes, reincorporating the gut with microbes that are not as present in C section births. So, we have beneficial microbes which are necessary for our health and for ruling the environment of the gut. And when we are not born vaginally, or we have antibiotics in birth or pregnancy, or there's just symptoms from the mom previously, those pathogenic microbes will be the rulers of the roost. And we want to right that ship so that beneficial microbes are in charge, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's a lot. I'm like so impressed already and mind blown. I definitely talk food like very simply. I'm just saying, I just don't want any processed food, including processed dairy, processed gluten.
What you're saying is a super great baseline. It makes sense to kind of have that category of like, I want this, I don't want this. And the next step that I take mothers through is like how the body heals. So why would we need a specific food for tissue healing? Why would we need a specific food that makes us a happy home for healthy microbes? Why would we need to introduce probiotic rich brines that provide the body with lots of vitamins, minerals, and probiotics that support the total ecology? So I'm teaching a lot in my courses and on Instagram, like how to cook foods that create better function in the body.
That's amazing. And I think with all of this information spread online, we need the why and we need to just to be motivated to do those extra things like making a brine. And yeah, that totally makes sense. I love that. So on that note, I'll just say I describe how I eat to people as ancestral. Um, and that's, there's Instagram accounts popping up saying ancestral eating or ancestral Sally, or that's their account name. So I tend to lean towards those kind of people, that realm. Is there a way you can kind of describe how you feed your family, kind of a not a diet name, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. My main focus is on healing and allowing the body's desires or intuition to lead us to the foods that we need to thrive. And so I focus a lot on nutrient density, specifically for babies. I want to hit all of the nutrients that they need early in life, both through mother's breast milk. So making sure that mom is consuming foods that provide nutrient rich breast milk. And also, when you start solids, giving baby those foods that help their brain, their gut, and their immune system. And so, sometimes when we have symptoms presenting, we need to eliminate certain foods so that we can starve off pathogens that are in the gut and promote building capacity of the body. And so I kind of look at it like a yin and yang of building foods and cleansing foods. And the body's desires is going to lead us to, wanting more building foods one day, wanting more cleansing foods the other day. And that's important to hone and listen to what our guts are telling us, really. And so once you have gotten through that, very delicate and important healing window, whether it's in the postpartum or when your baby's first starting solids, then you can kind of graduate, to eating more grains, sugar occasionally, pasta in Italy, right? Like these more fun foods or more modern foods that really don't harm the body so long as the body's healthy.
I love that. Okay, yeah, that's a lot of what I've been finding too. And I eat most foods, but basically just the less processed versions of them. So, one thing though that is very controversial, and I tell all my friends, I don't really talk about it online because I'm no expert here, but I experienced healing through eliminating legumes, seeds, cruciferous dark greens, and I'm missing one, nuts. So, a lot of, which is I used to just basically eat only those things. I wanted to be the healthiest, and I was just eating salads with all of those things, right? Those were my main food groups. But now that I've cut them out, which does kind of fall along those ancestral eating lines, they say, I really, after years and years of searching, I really did experience healing from that. And now when I try eating them again, I do feel like they're just sitting in my stomach and not being digested. So I know that's crazy to a lot of people. I'm wondering kind of your opinion on those four food groups.
Yeah. Those are great questions. Well, in the foods that you listed, they actually are really high oxalate foods, a lot.
Mm.
And so oxalates are plant toxins, and essentially we can do some oxalate processing, but in order to be able to process them, we need a healthy gut microbiome. And so if we have like a life that's shifted towards those foods for many, many years, we're not getting the nutrients we need. We're not really coming into those eating windows with a robust microbiome, or over time it's wearing us down. And then that is just basically impairing digestion. Like you said, it feels like it's sitting in your stomach. You feel bloat. And really, those foods, nutritionally, they don't really pack the punch like meat does. And so I always bring it back to like, what would my nomadic ancestors have been doing? They probably wouldn't have been picking kale, and they probably wouldn't have been carrying around nuts or even prioritizing nuts. And so there are certain processes you can do to like take some of the anti-nutrients out of those foods, and like on occasion with a healthy microbiome, I think it's fine. But when it comes to mothers and children and really trying to help them feel like robust and lively in this delicate postpartum time or pregnancy window, or just their start to life, it's like nuts. I could take them or leave them, and I'm probably going to leave them every time. And especially when we're talking in terms of macronutrients and protein, like when we look at animal protein, it's so much more than protein. It has selenium, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, like all these trace minerals that we really need in our body, B vitamins, and you get all that from like one bite of steak. So why would I not choose the protein, which our body really, really needs and is an underrated nutrient, although it's gained a little popularity on Instagram lately,
Yes.
over something like a nut, which is very hard for my body to break down. I'm always kind of baffled by that. Like, just once I've left nuts in my past and people are like, eating nuts for protein, I'm like, that's not really protein. That's more of a fat, and you can't really digest it.
Yeah, it's wild. And it really did just so improve my way of living and how I feel every day. So I can't keep my mouth shut about it. But definitely a lot of people are still living with those main food groups in their mind as like the healthiest things to be eating. So,
Yeah, they're really lean foods. So you want to think about this time of motherhood, the childbearing continuum, as like a fortifying time. Because by nature's design, we are gifting our nutrients to our children, and we are going to give those nutrients at the deficit of ourselves. So if we want to come out of the childbearing continuum with a lot of energy and vitality and not depleted, we need to make sure that we're repleting our stores so that we can use those for repair and for rest, for nervous system regulation. All those things are super essential.
I love that. Another thing I wrote down was what is regenerative cooking because you've used that term before, but is that kind of just what you're talking about? Is the healing side of it?
Yeah, I named my business Regenerative Cooking School back in 2019. And the reason why I did that was because I was very connected to two main concepts. One was that our body regenerates when we have toxins or have turnover in the body. We don't waste energy on cleaning up cells. We just rebuild cells. We regenerate cells. We can regenerate our liver. We can regenerate our skin. We can regenerate every cell in the body. And so the other piece of that was connecting it to agricultural practices that were regenerating the land and the soil. And so when we source food from regenerative sources, regenerative farms, biodynamic farms, farmers who are utilizing natural grazing practices to heal the soil, we're getting a quality of food that also heals our body. And so there's this really reciprocal relationship between the consumer and the farmer that I think is so, so important and is actually going to save America. And if we can connect those two things and localize our food systems, we will have so much more security for our children and health in our communities and families. So, regenerative cooking is implementing both of those practices, using foods to heal so the body regenerates, as well as sourcing local from your farmer who's healing the land with their farming practices.
Wow, that it is the most beautiful way of putting it and really aligns with just my passion for sustainability. And many people, of course, come at me because I eat meats and I'm so passionate about the planet and animals and people. But yeah, just the way you worded that is amazing. And I've never heard that concept that if it's regenerative for the land, it's most likely regenerative for our bodies. So that's really cool. I love that. And you kind of mentioned like farmers markets. Where do you find yourself grocery shopping the most?
Well, I am so blessed because I just moved to a small town it's Gainesville, Florida, and I literally go to the grocery store once a month, maybe twice, because I can get meat, eggs, vegetables, cheese, milk, all from my farmer's market. And when I don't go to my farmer's market, I have a small grocery store chain, which is called Ward's. Shout out if you're in North Central Florida, you know it. And it's a very small mom and pop grocery store that's been bustling for many years. And there's also a farm stand that just opened up about 11 minutes from my house, and they sell meat, eggs, milk, and vegetables that are grown on the farm. And so I go to those places pretty much exclusively. If I travel, I go to Whole Foods because it's reliable and I like can, shop that store. And in where I used to live, I would frequent the co-ops. Anytime I go and visit a place, I'm going to look up where the farmers market is, when it is, what kind of purveyors are there, and then I'm going to find the co-op and I'm going to go to the co-op. My husband and I joke that like grocery stores are our happy place. So we definitely like, finding the co-ops here and there. But right now where we live, we don't have one. So it's that mom and pop grocery store or the farm stand, and the mainstay is the farmer's market.
How would you find a co-op when you're traveling?
Oh, I would just be like, organic food near me, co-op near me. Like I literally just pasture raised meat near me. I put that into Google all the time, and or I just put it right on the map and I can find it, and that usually ends up having us find like super cool restaurants. Also, Seed Oil Scout is a good resource for restaurants. I
Yes.
use that a lot. Usually brings me to neat places, and people who are aware about seed oils are also generally speaking conscious consumers, and so that's a great way to just like network. And the world is changing. I mean, like my husband and I say it all the time because I used to fly across the country with meat in my suitcase, 50 pounds of meat, so that I could eat, meat that I knew was healthy. And nowadays it's like you can just find local grass-fed and finished beef everywhere you go, pretty much. You can find it, and you can find restaurants that will cook your steak in butter, and you can find local fermented foods. It's a real revolution that is happening.
It's so true. And when I travel, I'm the same. It's my happy place to find a co-op or a seed oil free restaurant, and I geek out over their menu. It's actually so fun. And for the listener who may not live in Gainesville, Florida, I must say, I think I live in probably one of the most difficult places to find these kinds of foods. In Hawaii, you'd think maybe it'd be easier just with I don't know, maybe your thought of it, the culture of it, but it's not. It's most foods are imported in packaging and it's a hunt, but at least like my small community, we are really passionate about it, but the majority of the islands and of this island are not. And so it is a hunt, but we've made it happen. So I think it is possible. I can only speak for the US. I feel like it's probably easier in other countries, but I don't know for sure, but I think it is very doable. just about most places in the US.
I've definitely been the mom who's driven 45 minutes for raw milk. I buy things in
That's
bulk,
me.
like this is a commitment, right? Like this kind of change that we are speaking about making in our families is not just, I'm playing the long game here. So I'm trying to repair multiple generations of health and reclaim food sovereignty and a food lineage, which I can pass on to my children and be really proud of, not to mention how that plays out in their life and the things that they will be capable of because they have a healthy and strong and robust system.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we live our values every day. If this is something that's valuable to you and you're drawn to it, then in the beginning, know that it's going to be like chop wood, carry water to make this stuff happen, but it will get easier and easier, and the universe will open up to you and provide.
So true. And as you said, it is, hopefully we stay on this track, but it seems to be getting way easier, especially with these apps and with Google and people just talking about it, then businesses are going to listen and they're going to change. I see it right in front of my eyes. So, one thing you talk about, I'd love to talk about is how your kids love pate. And I'm currently just taking liver pills. I'm not a big fan of supplementing in pills. I'd rather just eat my nutrients. But that's just something that's been hard. I'm getting there. It's on the to-do list is learn how to make pate and learn how to love the flavor of liver. But I'd love for you to maybe just explain how that happened and is it easy?
Yeah, totally. So I've raised two liver lovers. I ate liver in both my pregnancies, which probably had something to do with it. And in terms of my first pregnancy, I had quite a bit of nausea. And my practitioner, GAPS practitioner that I was working with at the time, she was like, all right, you got to start eating liver every day. And so we just did small teaspoons of pate. And I started with just sometimes like even just a speck on the tongue. And I would just be like, this is so delicious and healing. And I would work up every single day a little bit more until I was eating about a tablespoon or two a day of pate during my pregnancy. And my nausea completely went away. So there's a couple reasons for that happening, possibly starving for B vitamins and the nutrients that are in liver, that satiated me in a way so that I wasn't having this like adverse feeling to a lot of different foods. A lot of times nausea and food aversions are actually related to nutrient deficiencies. And with liver being the most nutrient rich food in the world, it's a great one to add in if you are having food aversions because it's going to pack a punch with nutrients. And the second reason is because it provided um, nutrients, which is essentially power for my liver to better detox. And so if there's nausea coming up, there's likely toxins that are passing or even just hormonal imbalances that can be significantly supported by eating liver. And it is a big difference from eating it and taking a pill. I also have taken liver pills before, but the thing about when you cook the liver, you're eating it with fats. And eating liver with fats is so important because that is the nutrient synergy that allows your body to absorb it even better. So with pate, it's wonderful because you're cooking down those onions and you're adding in tons of butter or bacon fat, and then you're cooking your liver to medium rare. I like to blend mine with three hard-boiled eggs. I think that really like smooths out the taste. It also adds more nutrients, so more nutrient synergy. And then I put a little bit of apple cider vinegar, plenty of salt, more fat. Bacon fat's a really good one to use if you're a little bit nervous about your pate. And then it's like so sweet and delicious. And my kids are crazy for it. And I literally am like, we're done with pate now. Okay. Like, no more. You're done. You're cut off. And they love it. So I think that just starting with a little bit of, some people like to do the frozen liver pills. That's good too. If you're taking your pills, make sure you're having it with like a glass of milk or eating it alongside some kefir or yogurt so that you're getting those fats as well, or with your lunch, which is like a ribeye and sauerkraut and it has natural fats. So those are my tips for, getting on board with liver. Starting with poultry is another good tip. So duck or chicken liver is fantastic. And if you have a chance to buy it at a nice restaurant, do that because it's going to taste so good. And you're going to be like, how did they make this? I want this. How did I make this? How do they make this? So I have a recipe on Instagram that you guys can check out too.
See, maybe I'll find that and link it in the show notes. Yeah, I'm excited to start trying it. It's on the to-do list, as I said. So And that's a
Perfect.
great tip. Take the pills with, I try to always have them with food, but yeah, with milk or something.
Yeah. And it's a great postpartum food. So maybe your goal could be to make it and put it in the freezer in little containers. And so that way it's just already done when you have your baby and you guys can, be eating it together, you through your mouth and your baby through your breast milk.
Yeah. Also, fermented foods. That is another thing I'm struggling with. And I know I'm not the only one. So, again, I don't really just want to take a pill. I know that who knows what that's doing. Yogurt is easy for me. I'm so glad I love yogurt. But do you have some good tips for fermented foods?
Absolutely, I do. I love ferments, and it's always the like intimidation factor for people. They're like, I can't make that. It's gonna mold. It's way too hard. Da 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 da.
Mm.
You know what? It's actually not hard. You just have to try and you just have to do it. And then you're gonna be like, oh gosh, this was so easy. Like most people circle back and they're like, that was so much easier than I thought. So beet kvass sauerkraut, those are two like starting point staples that are so good. And with the kvass, literally you just chop beets, put them in a mason jar about halfway full, put a tablespoon of salt and fill the jar with water and then shake it up so that the water dissolve or the salt in the water dissolves. Leave it on your counter for 7 days and then move it to the fridge and you have beet kvass. Kraut is also pretty easy. You have to pound the cabbage and mix it with the salt and put it in the jar, and it makes its own juices and it's bubbly and effervescent. It's very high in vitamin C. The beet kvass that I spoke about earlier is great for like a liver tonic. It's great for your blood. It's great for cardiovascular health. It has betaines. It has B vitamins. So, the thing about a probiotic that's made commercially versus a homemade fermented food is that with the foods, you're not only ingesting the probiotics, but you are ingesting the nutrition from that food. And the probiotic multiplies the nutrition in that food. So, cabbage, for example, raw has about a significantly less amount of vitamin C than it does fermented. And so that's one of the benefits that you're getting from making and eating your own fermented foods. You're also, literally eating it. So you're chewing it, it has enzymes, it's helping you digest better, it's adding microbes to your ecology. And you're also, doing a skill with your hands. You're really involved and connected to the process of making food. And I think that really multiplies our health more than we quite understand. That said, you can probably find some really good, well made ferments locally in glass containers in the refrigerated section, and there's absolutely no shame in starting there. Even the Costco brands of like wild brine ferments, like just start there, y'all. Just go for the ferments. And if it's strong for you and you have die off reactions, that means your body needs a little bit more healing. And so, always with working with fermented foods, it is medicine, it is strong. And so I always tell people start small. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. Some people are like, I'm a rip the band-aid off kind of person and I just want to heal everything. And they do. But they feel the flu-like symptoms. They feel the repercussions of this microbiome changeover. Sort of like it gets worse before it gets better, but that's short-lived. So don't be too afraid.
I love that. I have been fermenting onions. Super
Ooh.
easy, same process. What would be the difference? Is there a difference between pickling versus just making the salt brine for most of these foods?
Yes. So pickling is a vinegar-based process. And a lot of times pickling has sugar, so it doesn't have the live lacto fermentation. Lacto means stands for lactobacillus. So we are taking the natural bacteria that are on plants and fruits and vegetables, and we're proliferating that in an environment where it can multiply. Whereas a vinegar pickle, you're basically heating the water, heating the vinegar, and you're curing something, but it's really more deadening the food. Whereas with fermentation, you're enlivening the food. Right. So let's take this example. So like raw apple cider vinegar. If you're taking raw apple cider vinegar and you're putting that on pickles, there's more of that fermentation, or putting that on onions to make a quick pickle. There's more of that fermentation process there because in the apple cider vinegar, there is live probiotics. But if we're talking about a white vinegar and sugar pickle made from cucumbers, that's a dead product. It tastes good, but it's not invigorating our body with beneficial microbes. It's not alive. It won't explode on the shelf like a fermented, lacto-fermented product would.
Wow. Okay. I just thought I was being lazy and not making my onions yummier, but it actually is a difference. And is it the sugar that is stopping that from multiplying, or what is it about?
Well, there's not the environment. So if we're just putting
Okay.
vinegar on onions, we're not creating an anaerobic environment for bacteria to multiply and for sugars to be eaten. So essentially what happens
Mm,
is that you're putting, cabbage into a solution of salt and water. And within that time, a natural process starts to occur where bacteria proliferates, beneficial bacteria proliferates, and it creates an environment where pathogens cannot live. And so that's the main thing that we're doing with lacto fermentation. We're setting up an environment for beneficial bacteria to thrive. And then with the pickling situation, it's just like cooked
yeah.
food, basically, right? And because the vinegar is already, it's not alive, unless we're talking raw apple cider vinegar, which is different than lactobacillus, but kind of getting into the weeds there.
Okay, yes. All right, that makes sense. I'm so glad I asked that. And moving on to babies first solids, because I'm always making fun of myself that I've been studying so much about pregnancy, and I'm like, okay, wait, the due date's coming up. What do I do after?
Mm.
So, one big thing I hear a lot about, maybe you could just give some tips, because I know this is a broad subject, but I hear a lot about maybe prepping postpartum foods, but then baby had some allergies to it or sensitivities. So, how do you stay aware of these sensitivities? And is that something you've come across a lot with the postpartum foods you recommend?
Right, great question. So babies are sensitive right now. They're coming out with dysbiosis and they have medicated births, and moms are going into pregnancy really stressed and depleted. And so it has been what I've been seeing is kind of a rough road in that postpartum time. The main thing you want to think about with your postpartum foods is building nutrient rich, collagenous rich, fat rich foods. These are nourishing and they are going to support your body's ability to repair and to create breast milk and to slow down and to rest. I can't emphasize this anymore to moms out there who are listening. The bottom of the pyramid, meaning for postpartum care, the most important aspect, the foundation, is your rest. Right on top of that is your food. On top of that is your connection to wise women and the tradition. And on top of that is your connection to nature. So even if that means that you're just laying in your bed looking out the window and noticing the leaves fall, that's still a connection to nature. And even just knowing that that's important is going to inform the process for you. But that bottom of the period, really, really, really setting a time aside to rest, getting your partner on board and knowing like I am not getting up. And look, I'm a type A kind of person, or I don't even know if I'm type A, but I'm a driven person. Okay. So I'm driven and I have a career that I love and I work all day long and with my babies and taking care of them and cooking and cleaning and the whole thing. So if I have a period of time, which is 40 days that I am supposed to lay down and rest and nurture and connect with my baby, you better believe I'm going to take myself up on that. This is a time where your nervous system is very receptive. So, what comes in at this time is going to inform your tissue, your system, your baby's growth and development. And when we can rest and decompress and connect, there is no better gift that you can give to yourself and your child. And it's really hard to do that because everyone around us, it's still the culture of like bounce back from birth, aren't you? All that's still really there. In every pregnancy and every birth that I have, I told myself I'm going to get better. My postpartums are going to get even more luxurious, lovely, nourishing, warm. And it really has been that way. I've had two babies, and every postpartum has gotten better. And so, just to bring it back to the foods, that allergic reaction, the immune system on alert, not being able to breastfeed because of all these complications, not having enough milk, all the things that I hear come up, my baby's reacting to my milk, we have to then bring that focus back to us as moms and say, how much more can I rest, relax, nourish, deepen, and replenish myself? Because there's miraculous healing that can happen in the fourth trimester and in your postpartum window. This is a time, like I mentioned, the nervous system is open and receptive, very much so. We are vulnerable, and that means we're very vulnerable to healing. And we can heal chronic disease, we can resolve allergies. Um, and specifically, the foods that help us to get there are our ancestral animal foods, warm cooked broths, stews, soups, properly prepared grains, and resting. That's how we do it.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And first babies for solids, 6 month range, unless you suggest otherwise. What are some foods you try to avoid? And then the same question, how do you kind of pay attention to their sensitivities in that time?
Yeah, so the whole idea is just really mimicking and mirroring what we've done for mom in the postpartum. We want to introduce warm and nourishing building foods for baby that really mirror the composition of breast milk, so protein forward, rich in nutrients like vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin D. We want to get plenty of good B vitamins. And we want those foods to be really bioavailable for our children. And what that means is that they can easily digest them. So when a baby is starting solids, it's a really delicate process, and you want to honor the rite of passage with foods that really honor their body. And in the meantime, you'll set them up for no allergens, no reactivity. You can clear up eczema. You can help them with digestive issues, and you can make them really adventurous eaters because we're shaping their palates and their microbiome as we transition them onto foods like, meat stock, liver, bone marrow, red meat, shellfish, seasonal vegetables, and fermented foods.
Mhm. Love that. She's gonna eat so good. I can't wait. um, Amazing. We're covering so many of my big questions that I've just been putting off and intimidated to ask. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I guess my last kind of fun bonus question. I have a lot of moms in my life that are so good at keeping an ounce of processed sugar away from their babies. So, what is that like for you? How much do you emphasize that if you're maybe one of your parents is trying to give your baby a lollipop? Like, how do you go about the whole avoiding processed sugars thing?
Good question. It's a big one. Okay, so yeah, I'm pretty clear on the no sugar situation. My kids eat honey and raw honey, and I really I didn't give them a smash cake on their first birthday, although I've kind of started to change my tune on that because I heard that the smash cake is like representative of the placenta, and I actually really love that. Yeah, so I usually make liver pate for my kids' birthdays. A lot of moms in my courses will make, big steaks and things like that. The overall conversation is that it's okay to be different. It's okay for to model for our children that being different is a good thing. And at a very young age, we're first, because they're babies and toddlers, they're so young and they're completely in our control. It's really about building their body intelligence so that it knows to return to the foods that heal and the foods that make them feel really good. So, right at an early age, we're connecting feeling good in their bodies to foods. And that's super important just foundationally. As they get older, obviously, we're going to bring in more conversations, more developmental discussions that inform them around why our family does what we do. And then when it comes to parents, close relatives, assimilating with the culture, I just have very clear scripts of things that I say, oh, we don't eat that. Thank you so much for offering it. Our parents, they've honestly been trained because we were so clear for so long. So they know pretty much. But, my mom sent me like rice teething crackers in the mail with my son, and she was like, they're organic. Is he going to have those? And I was just like, no, mom, thank you so much for sending them. Just we're not going to eat those, but thank you. And she's like, oh, okay, well, can you donate them? And I'm like, sure. So in those kind of situations, it's really just about leading with compassion and having enough of your values instated in your heart that it doesn't bother you when someone is making a passive aggressive comment about, oh, just let kids be kids or whatever. Because, like I said, I'm playing the long game, and I know that I can give my child delight in life without indulging in chemicals and foods that are really going to damage his body.
I love that. Yeah. I definitely relate, but it's so worth it. I can definitely see just those beginning years. They're basically forming what they love, right? I mean, I'm sure your kids love raw honey now, right? I didn't even like honey until I was a teenager. So it's kind of what you're introducing and
Yeah, oh yeah, they're obsessed with honey. They love seasonal fruit. Like, of course, they're kids, so they still like sugar.
yeah.
They're still very excited by that. But the fact that my son will drop anything for a banana or a local peach or like blueberries, I'm good with that. Like, that's amazing. And he knows that if he eats too much blueberries, it gives him diarrhea, you know? So it's just like
Yeah.
there's a limit. But I think seasonality also offers us such natural guidelines, because if foods aren't available at our local farmers market, guess what? We're not eating them.
That's so awesome. Oh, and I love that you communicate to the kids this is why. So, okay, this has been awesome. I will definitely add all your links to the show notes so we can check out your course and check out your Instagram. Okay, thank you so much for joining. Honestly, I feel like your accounts are such a wealth of knowledge and I feel very prepared. So, thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.